Now, we've had, under the Trump administration, the US Attorney General Jeff Sessions say that prosecuting WikiLeaks is a priority. We've had Mike Pompeo, the director of the CIA, describe WikiLeaks as a hostile non-state intelligence agency, and that Julian Assange ought not benefit from constitutional protections under the First Amendment. The current US administration has said that prosecuting him is a priority and that he will not benefit from constitutional free speech protections. As the Working Group on Arbitrary Detention has found, his confinement constitutes indefinite and unlawful detention. For 6 years now, Mr. Assange has been inside the embassy without sunlight or outdoor access and unable to obtain proper medical attention. How could this situation arise? How could it be that an editor and a publisher would need to seek asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy? Why was it that Sweden dragged that investigation out for years and years on end? What is it about WikiLeaks that makes them so dangerous?
Pompeo calling WikiLeaks a hostile non-state intelligence service, calling Julian Assange himself a demon, and said he's not protected by the First Amendment. Your thoughts?
Well, I think it speaks for itself. WikiLeaks has released lots of information that governments don't like. It's overwhelmingly information that citizens should have. It's information about what their governments are doing. And perfectly natural that systems of power don't want to be exposed. So they'll do what they can to prevent exposure.
But if he leaves the embassy to seek medical treatment, the British authorities have made clear that he will be arrested.
Now, we're talking here about fundamentals. And the right of someone to seek asylum is an absolutely fundamental right. You have it in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But there is a principle of international law called the principle of non-refoulement, which means you cannot deport, expel, or extradite an individual if there is a well-founded fear that that person will suffer persecution. If Assange is sent to the United States, it's absolutely certain that he will suffer persecution.
The UK shows deliberate disregard for his medical needs by forcing him to choose between his human right to asylum and his human right to medical treatment. No one should ever have to make this choice.
There's been no credible basis for any of this. And to go on to try to raise it to the level of criminal prosecutions, I think is, again, one of these efforts to look tough at home, and the kind of effort that a government would carry out that is dedicated to trying to protect itself from exposure of facts that citizens should have, but systems of power don't want them to have. I think that's the crucial issue.
If WikiLeaks is prosecuted in the United States for receiving and publishing information, then that is a precedent that puts at risk all media organisations, traditional, mainstream, new media, online publishers. Everybody is at risk by this particular precedent. And the way in which it's been wielded, first by the Obama administration and now more worryingly by the Trump administration, an equal problem for free speech that I think we really must focus people's attention on.
In the WikiLeaks story, I was shocked to realize how thousands of reporters were covering the case, and no one tried to get access to the document to discover what happened. So you had all these thousands of press reports saying he tried to escape from justice. And no one had tried to access the actual document from the Swedish prosecutors, from the UK prosecutors, and check, let me see what really happened, what the prosecutors were writing, what the Assange lawyers were writing, what the UK government was writing. No one tried to get hard facts, which is the first thing that a reporter is supposed to do. And that's why I decided to litigate the case, to go to court with lawyers, Estelle and Jan, and to try to say, I think the press has the right to see the full set of documents.
In the end, we didn't get everything. More came out during that process than I had anticipated might be the case.
Such as we discovered that they destroy documents.
So it came out during the course of the litigation that there was a number of holes in the documents that we were given. So we were given some documents, but others we were refused. And in the documents that we were given, we noticed a pattern, that there were some things that were never talked about, things that you can't imagine wouldn't be talked about. So there was no correspondence between, for example, the Swedish Prosecution Authority and the Crown Prosecution Service at the time when Julian Assange went into the Ecuadorian embassy. And there was no correspondence between them at the time when the UN body, which Jen is going to talk about in a sec, when they made the determination that there was arbitrary detention. We thought this can't be possible. So we said to the Crown Prosecution Service, where is this? You must have this. And it came back, no, we realize now that even though our policy is not to delete documents, even though this was an ongoing case, unfortunately it seems like many documents have been deleted.
And I think there is a great irony in the fact that we are discussing the case of Julian Assange, the editor of WikiLeaks, who led the transparency movement, who has brought the right to know into common parlance. Yet the irony is that his case lacks transparency and accountability altogether. So this is a case, we are discussing someone who is an editor and a publisher who is arbitrarily detained in the United Kingdom in a Western democracy.
But what I find most problematic here is the erosion of the rule of law, not only in the United States, that has been eroded long ago, but in the United Kingdom, in Sweden, where the law is being used to destroy justice. Here we have a person who is a human rights defender. Whistleblowers are human rights defenders. They have made it possible for us to know what crimes have been covered up, to know what torture and killings have occurred in our name.
Was that the Crown Prosecution Service, the Information Commissioner who's also involved, and the tribunal itself, which is the British equivalent of a lower level court, everybody accepted and treated the case as though WikiLeaks was a media organization, and that's recognized in the judgment, and that there was a public interest in the work that WikiLeaks was doing. And as a lawyer that's interested in freedom of information in the United Kingdom, that at least gave me some solace, that there is a general recognition that alternative types of media, like WikiLeaks, where you are publishing source material in that way, is now a recognized form of journalism and counts at least as a media organisation, and I found that fascinating.
And yet, the UK government will not give an assurance to protect Julian Assange from extradition to face prosecution in the United States for publishing.
It's nothing to do with Sweden now, it's just the British government won't give that guarantee.
That's right. The Swedish
They have given some guarantee, though?
The British government will not give any guarantee.
President Trump endorsed WikiLeaks, right? He said, I love WikiLeaks during the campaign.
When it was releasing things that he liked. Any system of power will do that. You release information that I like, it's great, but I don't want to be exposed.
But what's extraordinary about this case is that the Democratic National Party, a political party that says it stands for free speech, is pursuing a case, in particular in relation to WikiLeaks, that has widespread ramifications for free speech. What this would mean, if they're successful in this suit, is that the DNC, all the Republicans or any other political party, could sue any media organisation, whether it's WikiLeaks, the New York Times, or any other, for publishing internal material that's leaked during the course of an election. They say it's trade secrets. Now, this is a fundamental assault, not just on free speech, but on democracy as we understand it. And that the DNC would pursue this kind of case is unthinkable.
The situation is relatively simple in legal terms. Julian does not face any charges. There was a comment on Friday from Jeremy Hunt, the new Foreign Secretary in the UK, who on a number of occasions said that Julian faced serious charges. There are no charges. there is a warrant which relates to a failure to answer bail. That is not a charge.
Would the UK government consider the time spent in the embassy as time served?
The United Kingdom can and should consider that time as the time served for jumping bail, so that there would be no time left over. That is, he has served far more time. I mean, for someone who has not been charged with a crime, would be a disgrace if Ecuador were not to honor its commitment, not only its commitment to someone who has received diplomatic asylum in its embassy, but someone who in December 2017 has received Ecuadorian citizenship. So Assange is an Ecuadorian citizen, and the Ecuadorian government has an obligation vis-a-vis its own citizens and an obligation to protect his rights. So if Assange is going to leave the Ecuadorian embassy in London, we must have guarantees that he will not be arrested by the British authorities for something that, jumping bail depends the reason why you jump bail. If you jump bail to seek asylum because your life is threatened, that is a legitimate, that is a valid reason to jump bail. So it's here the use of positivism, the use of the law to destroy the law, to destroy the spirit of the law. So I'm very concerned about this erosion of the rule of law in the United Kingdom, and I am very concerned about the possibility that this sacrosanct principle of non-refoulement might be violated.
In my dreams, I walk free in the city streets. 2,500 days plus 50 weeks. Doing hard time for these WikiLeaks. Trying to bring the truth out. Man, it only gets you heat. And then they gag you. You don't get to speak. And when you get the leak, they try to hit delete. The masses of the masses, they want the shit discreet. That's why my middle finger's up to these sick elites. Free speech, it's the freedom of press. Take it deepest, darkest